These MAGA influencers are breaking at the seams. Dave Portnoy going online, crashing out. I mean, he was sweating in that video. He was so mad that he lost $7 million crashing out. But he wasn't crashing out when they're laying off all these people. Everybody's losing their job. No, it was until he started losing money that he started losing faith in Trump. Ben Shapiro called Trump unconstitutional. I've never heard Ben Shapiro criticize Trump in that manner. It's because these are starting to lose money. And the craziest part is a lot of people were thinking that, this was going to affect just, poor working class, middle class. But now you're seeing that everyone is taking a hit. I said this early on. It's not just going to be us. It's going to be everybody. It's going to be millionaires. Everybody don't take care of their money how y'all think they take care of their money. Some of these guys like Dave Portnoy, Ben Shapiro, they go on splurges. That's why they make the videos that they make. That's why they're controversial. That's why they continue to be controversial. They make a shit ton of money. And they put a shit ton of money back into the stocks and all that stuff as well. And now you seeing their bottom dollar is going out. So it's hard to get up there on a microphone when you losing money.
In case you are confused, these are the videos he is talking about.
Yesterday, President Trump declared that it was, in fact, Liberation Day, his giant tariff policy that he just dropped on the market unilaterally, probably unconstitutionally. Trump's reciprocal tariffs impose hundreds of billions of dollars in new taxes on Americans, be the largest tax increase since the Revenue Act of 1968. One of the biggest tax increases on American consumers in the history of America. And it's going to cost American consumers. It will cost American producers who use inputs from other countries. The Dow Jones Industrial Average plummeted immediately more than 1,000 points. The S&P 500 plummeted more than 3%. The NASDAQ plummeted almost 4.5%. There are real-world implications for this sort of stuff. Trade wars are, in fact, not good and not easy to win, particularly if you don't actually have a plan. It is predicated on a bad idea of how international trade works. A fundamental misunderstanding of trade deficits. Trade deficits they're an accounting procedure. Trade deficits have pretty much nothing to do with the health of an economy. I can name you a period in American history where there was a fairly large surplus in America's balance of trade. The entire Great Depression.
And it's the gaslighting that the left is doing with Kamala Harris, making it sound like she's some great, groundbreaking candidate. She is the worst candidate to ever run for president ever. There's two people voting in this election. Either you're voting for Donald Trump, you like Donald Trump, or you hate Donald Trump and you're voting against him. But Kamala Harris, let's stop it. I almost tweeted out, Dave, how much are you down right now today? 7 million. I'm down $7 million in stocks and crypto. And it's tariff city. Trump has put his tariffs all over the place. I've been trying to understand them. I don't. Like, it's more a trade deficit tariff to me. Like, hey, we get this much shit from you and you get this much from us. Let's even that up. Let's get some wacky formula and do tariffs. And everything's in the because of it.
Dave Portnoy crashing out over the tariffs and how he lost $7 million today is just like so gorgeous. Dudes like him and Ben Shapiro, who just kept saying the only reason that they voted for him was because of the money, right? Like the economy's going to be better. We're going to have so much more money. And they've all just watched their 401ks just freaking nosedive. And I love people actually who have that perspective because there is an actual fact-based thing that you can talk to them about how they're wrong. It's not vibe. It's not I just feel better. We're actively watching them find out on the internet. And then they're going to the internet as if people on the internet aren't experiencing the same thing or even would feel bad for them for losing $7 million in a day. Like you took a gamble and you lost. You might have won the election, okay? And that was all y'all could see was winning that election. But we're now all collectively about to lose for the next 10, 12 years, far longer than this term. And I just really hope that you're sitting in that. And I hope you have the day that you deserve. Happy Liberation Day. Yay!
For those experiencing this for the first time, Joe Rogan and Ben Shapiro are going viral because they are disagreeing and distancing themselves from Trump and his policies. And that is the definition of a grifter. More specifically, Joe Rogan has spent at the minimum the past 2 years pumping pro-right content masked as just questioning everything. And now that the pool has gotten too deep, he wants out. The defining line between someone who's just changed their mind and a grifter is humility. Because someone who's changed their mind can admit, I was wrong, this is where I need to learn. Joe Rogan's going to claim that he was never political, that his content was just purely entertainment, and that you shouldn't follow it as gospel anyways. Anyone with substantial influence has the obligation to recognize their substantial influence on the public. In Joe Rogan's case, he has the ability to shape and add to the perspectives of millions of people regarding politics because a lot of his content does revolve around that stuff. Now, a key step in grifting is you change with the times, but act as if you've always been on that aspect. So he will position himself to either a neutral or even possibly a left-leaning media platform because that's where the money is. That's where the money's going, and he will do that so that he can maintain his space and his platform as long as possible. Grifting is a spineless cash grab that reveals these people lack any integrity in the slightest.
Everybody wants to know, what is MAGA's response to the tariffs? Are they excited about them? Are they worried about them? Well, here's your answer.
When you realize Trump is crashing the economy on purpose to force the federal government to cut interest rates and make the American dream affordable again. Remember, he is playing chess, not checkers.
He's not playing chess or checkers right now. He's golfing. Again, let me tell you why he came out and said that he is purposefully crashing the economy in order to cut interest rates. It's because he has to throw you a little teeny tiny snack. He has to make sure that something good happens out of this, and the good thing that happens out of this is something that happens during a recession. During a recession, the feds cut interest rates. So woohoo, yay, we're suddenly gonna get 3% interest rates. When your Chevy Silverado goes from $45,000 to $58,000, I can guarantee you're not gonna care about the 3% interest rate.
Trump is a businessman, not a politician, and he is standing on business with these tariffs.
Trump has filed Chapter 11 bankruptcy 6 times in his career.
If tariffs don't work, then why are we being tariffed by all these other countries?
You should not be allowed to vote.
Did you not think Trump knew the stock market would fall over the tariffs? He is a businessman. Trust the process. Liberals stop crying over his every move.
Saying trust the process in this situation would be like going to the hospital for open heart surgery and the surgeon walks in with a sledgehammer and a glue gun and you're supposed to trust him.
Everything was on purpose. Watch the interest rates fall and the American dream become attainable again. He's setting up our future generations for success.
He's setting up future generations to be child labor.
Me sitting here knowing Trump's tariffs are the path to no income tax, yet I see Democrats still don't get it.
Frankly, I would love no income tax. You know why? Because taxes from my state in New York and the fact that I am in the 1% income bracket go towards idiots like you. So yeah, let's end income taxes and let's see how your states figure out how to pay for shit. Republicans have been sucking the blue states for half a century now. Yeah, let's cut you loose. I agree. No more income taxes.
Now that Trump has put tariffs on pretty much every single country, just letting you know that once the tariffs are taken off, if they're taken off, the prices are not coming back down. Ever. Once companies see that they can make a certain amount of money from their product and people are willing to pay it because they have no choice, they will keep the price there because they care about profits. Businesses are there to make profits, not to make people's lives easier, not to give them cheap products. They're there to make money. That's the whole point of a business. And if more products are made in the USA, wages will be higher for the workers, therefore the prices will also be higher. And I'm not saying that it's a bad thing that things are made in America or that people are paid a fair wage. I think that's a great thing. But you have to expect to pay more because of that. So this is all to say, get ready to have less money. Really, that's it.
Dave Portnoy has moved on from taunting Democrats to processing the ramifications of his own actions. I just wish that Donald Trump had told us at some point while he was campaigning that he planned on implementing all these tariffs, and then I wish there had been some huge panel of economists that said, well, that's a bad idea. That's going to completely fuck the global economy and the stock market. And then he kept saying he was going to do that anyway. If only he had told us, which he did every day, Dave. See, when you have a huge following and you endorse someone for president and you don't have a basic understanding of their economic policy, this is what you end up getting. You can tell Dave Portnoy is someone who just voted for Donald Trump because he thought there would be economic gain in it for himself as a wealthy person. See, the grift is already starting to break. The sheen of that grift is starting to wear off. He was asking questions in February about, where is the Epstein list? What's happening to crypto? What's happening to Tesla? Why are the Tate brothers being welcomed in? Dave might even be starting to notice that the Epstein list is a make-believe distraction that we're never going to see. The Kennedy assassination stuff is a make-believe distraction. The 9/11 stuff is a make-believe distraction. It's never, ever coming. Just like income tax is not going away, just like we're not getting $5,000 or $6,000 or $7,000 checks that were promised. Meanwhile, let's check in on Joe Rogan.
This is kind of crazy. That could be possible. That's horrific, and that's bad for the cause. Like, the cause is, let's get the gang members out. Everybody agrees. But let's not innocent gay hairdressers get lumped up with the gangs, and then, like, how long before that guy can get out? Can we figure out how to get him out? Is there any plan in place to alert the authorities that they've made a horrible mistake and correct it?
Joe Rogan on his own show talking about Kilmar Garcia, who was an innocent man who got taken to a prison in El Salvador, and his wife is now trying to fight to get him back here. We all collectively understand, Democrat and Republican, that this is fucking insane and this is where we are at. Thankfully, ICE has come out and said it was an administrative error, but they don't know if they can get him back. There have been some kind of sign from Donald Trump that he's a fucking racist who wanted to implement mass deportations. Didn't really care who it was that was getting lumped in. If only his rhetoric for the past 8 years had indicated that. You have Elon Musk, Zeke Heiling, and you have Republican congressmen quoting Goebbels in hearings. It's gotten to the point where neo-Nazi Nick Fuentes has said that the Nazi posturing is too much for him. He's also now completely turned on Trump, calling him a populist demagogue and saying liberals were fundamentally right about Trump. Obviously take what Nick says with a grain of salt, but that is still insane. If only Joe Rogan and Dave Portnoy had taken 10 seconds to educate themselves on the core values of the person that they voted for and endorsed to their massive following. People are already running like rats deserting a sinking ship, and it's only been a couple months.
So I think we're watching the community of podcast bros and right-wing influencers who helped get Trump elected slowly start to turn on him as he becomes more unhinged. It's so important to remember that YouTubers, podcasters, and right-wing bro influencers were the ones that essentially got Trump elected this time around. They lent him their massive collective audience of young men that then flocked out to vote for Trump after he'd been on their podcasts to say these kinds of basic platitudes to young men. Barely 2 months into the Trump administration part 2, and we're starting to see that unravel. Because Joe Rogan, one of the largest and loudest voices for Trump and the answer to a question, what happens if a sweaty Tesla grew arms and legs, come out quite strongly against snatching supposed Venezuelan gang members off the streets and deporting them to El Salvador without trial or due process. Then on the other side, you've got hugely influential conservatives like Ben Shapiro coming out against Trump over the tariff wars. Pro-capitalism, pro-free market talking heads like Ben Shapiro fully understand that what Trump is doing is terrible for business. So what they essentially supported him for, strong economy, strong business sector, is not happening. So they're turning on him as well. Then even at the very, very far end of the spectrum, you've got people like Nick Fuentes coming out against Trump, saying that Trump is just a grifter who's in it for himself and doesn't support their weird, you know exactly what they are. It kind of does say something that even people on the very far end of the far right are like, well, we can't really back this guy either at this point. And going forward, it's going to be really interesting because, like I say, Trump was elevated by this platform of podcasters and influencers that were like, oh, let's hear this guy out. You know, mostly just grifters. But now if he starts to lose those people, well, what exactly does he have left? Recent events suggest that the Republican Party is not completely loyal to him anymore. And a lot of Republican voters are coming out saying they regret their choices based on what Elon and Trump have done to the federal government and people's jobs. But if he loses the pop culture support as well, what's left? We'll have to see.
In what may be the least shocking news of all time, Joe Rogan has decided that Trump is actually doing bad stuff. Guys like Joe Rogan and Theo Vaughn that were like, I'm not like political or don't have that much sway, and we're obviously hardline Trump guys, are now kind of just being like, actually this is bad. So that's actually awesome. Accountability, kings of accountability. Yeah, the wanting your cake and to have it too thing. It's like before the election being the cool guy, being like, this is counterculture, and then after the fact being like, this is bad. So, thanks guys.
Who are all these people that want manufacturing jobs that these tariffs are supposed to bring back? Because the last time I checked, Republicans, they all want to buy crypto, they want to sell insurance, and they want to get a podcast. I don't see any of them lining up to work in a manufacturing plant. I've worked at a manufacturing plant, and you could not staff that place with native-born Americans. They staffed it with immigrant labor that we're now deporting. So, who are you?
I got to thinking about the mental gymnastics and how dumb you have to be to make excuses for this guy. It's really shocking. He's a great businessman with 7 bankruptcies, 3 bankrupted casinos. I mean, literally like Trump Steaks, Trump University, the cancer charity. He's a failure. He's a loser. But Paul, he's a family man. He's on his 3rd failed marriage. He said before God, his wife, and his wife's family, I will love you until death do us part. While his wife is at home, recovering from giving birth to their 2-week-old son, he goes and has with a porn star. Think about that, how disgusting you have to be as a human being. And then you say, well, Paul, he's a great man of God. I'm glad you brought that up. Because he said, telling you his favorite book in the Bible is too personal. How are you supposed to lead people to Jesus if you can't even tell them what your favorite book in the Bible is? If you can't even quote one scripture in the Bible? Why is that? How could you say, I hate Taylor Swift while you love Jesus? But while his wife is at home, his 3rd failed marriage, with their 2-week-old son, it's not too personal to Stormy Daniels in a hotel room in Las Vegas with a Bible on the nightstand. That's about as closest to religion and a Bible that Trump is ever going to get. That's it, with Stormy Daniels in the room. That's as close as he's ever going to get. Unless he's going to hold it upside down for a photo op to con people like you, your uneducated white evangelicals, who thinks that God sent him here. Speaking of which, let's talk about that. So you believe that God stood up there during the Holocaust, during the hundreds of years of slavery, during the colonization of the Native Americans, whose land that we stole, during all of the mass shootings, during January 6th, during Hiroshima, World War I, World War II, Mussolini, Joseph Stalin, but then God goes, you know what? The guy that can't even tell me what his favorite book in the Bible is, the guy who sexually abused this woman, you know what? After all these years, I think I'm going to come down and I'm going to spare his life and I'm going to nick his ear. And magically, all the cartilage on his ear is going to just regenerate magically. That's how stupid his base is. It's really stupid. I mean, it makes stupid look smart. I mean, this is a full-blown, uneducated, low IQ religious cult. They view him as Jesus. You can't give them facts, videos, everything's fake, everything's rigged. We're the victim. It's shocking. I don't know if it's the education system, if it's just people being naive, if it's ignorance, if it's a combination of all of it. But they really believe that Jesus, the guy that literally washed people's feet with his own hair, that cured the sick, that fed the hungry, sent this guy here who is sexually abusing women and cheats on all of his wives. I mean, that's what they believe. The mental gymnastics that you have to make for this guy, it's astonishing. And I was a Republican, and it is pathetic what that party has become. It's a religious cult. It's no longer a political party. You need to understand that. This is a religion to them. He is the last Hail Mary for the white patriarchy because they see their majority going away. And it doesn't matter if he eats a Tesla on national TV. They'll say that God inspired it. Oh, it was all fake news. Oh, he did it for Jesus. And he's so smart. Let me leave you with how smart this guy is. That he put reciprocal tariffs on McDonald Island, which is a 2-week boat ride from Australia that nobody lives on, and it's occupied by penguins. He didn't just put a tariff on it. He put a reciprocal tariff, which means that penguins put a 10% Tex on the United States. This is how stupid people are. This is why you can't have a conversation, because they actually believe this. It is absolutely mind-numbingly stupid what these people believe in order to follow this guy.
Sometimes we have to let their folks explain it to them. First, on the business side, Fox Business, and then on the Fox side, which is most important. Sometimes we need to let their folks explain it to them.
Well, BMW is going to rethink South Carolina because it's not going to import tariffed parts, engines from Germany, then to send those vehicles to export them. So again, it will mean if that plant stays open, it will mean fewer jobs potentially because they're going to make those vehicles somewhere else.
Well, where are they going to sell them now?
They sell them to China. They sell them to China and they sell them to Europe.
So every American customer who could buy a BMW could be replaced overnight by a Chinese customer.
They sell them they export them to China.
No, but I'm saying you can't make
they import the parts, which will be tariffed, and then they will export them from the United States where they're manufactured back to Europe, where they will be tariffed again, and then to China and nations around the globe. Right? So these are the problems that a U.S. manufacturer faces because the parts are coming from somewhere else.
They can also just make the parts here. They can make the car.
No, they can't. Absolutely not. That's a fallacy.
That's impossible.
Yeah, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. How about it?
It wouldn't take that long. Anyway, as far as the payments are concerned,
build German engines in the United States. Okay.
Even with this clear explanation, they still won't believe it. They are listening to their Lord and Savior, Donald Trump.
In case you're confused about what these tariffs really mean and the future implications, here are 2 videos that offer a very simple explanation.
You mean to tell me China put 67% tariffs on American goods while we only put 34%? You mean to tell me that all these countries are just ripping the United States off? Now this graph may seem so crazy that it can't be true. And that's because it's not true. The White House released this chart saying that Trump is implementing reciprocal tariffs, meaning he's putting tariffs on countries at the same rate that they put them on us. These tariffs, these values of tariffs that other countries put on us are not actually tariffs that they put on imported goods. What the White House did, and they have admitted this, these figures are actually our trade deficit with another country divided by the imports. The source is right there. So I'm going to use an example to make this easier to understand because not everybody has hours in their day to figure out what's going on with American trade. The Trump administration has made the claim that Madagascar has a 93% tariff on American goods going into their country. But since we now know, and this has been confirmed by the White House, that 93% number is really just our trade deficit divided by imports, that's not the case. So what's happening in Madagascar? Well, Madagascar is a huge exporter of vanilla and spices. So as the richest country in the world, we're going to buy a lot of vanilla and spices from Madagascar. Now, Madagascar also happens to be very poor. So what that means is that we are buying more from Madagascar than they are buying from us. That is called a trade deficit. And we're going to be in a lot of trade deficits with other countries, especially smaller ones, because we're the richest country in the world. So what the Trump administration just said is that they're putting tariffs on those countries simply because we are in a trade deficit with them. Because in order to get to that 93% number, they use the trade deficit divided by the imports. So the next time somebody says Trump is instituting reciprocal tariffs, just know these aren't actually reciprocal. Because the tariffs that he's claiming these other countries are charging us aren't even tariffs. They're just trade deficits. Tariffs are a fee that businesses pay to their country on imported goods from other countries. Tariffs have nothing to do with trade deficits. The real numbers can be seen here. So what's going to happen now that Trump instituted these tariffs? Well, everything's going to get more expensive for you. But the federal government's going to make more money because these tariffs that they're charging on American companies, well, it's pretty much just like a tax. And while the federal government is being greedy as it always is, what else do you think is going to happen? Do you think China is not going to approach those countries like Madagascar and say, hey, I know you just got ripped off by the United States, who you used to have really good relations with. Lean on us. Come to us. We're a reliable trading partner. So we're essentially ruining alliances and destroying America's position on the global stage because our federal government is greedy. Now, I have done a ton of videos on tariffs, but if you want me to do another video explaining exactly what tariffs are, I am happy to do that again, given that this is a national conversation. But please, make sure that you have looked into this information before you believe everything the government tells you.
The argument that you're going to hear throughout all of this tariff Trump bull is you're going to hear people say, well, it might hurt a little bit now, but it'll be better in the long run. This is an argument that I also hear people say kind of when we talk about like AI and like self-driving and what have you. They say it might not be ready now, but later it will be. What they are telling you is they don't care if you live or die right now. This idea that the Trump tariff plan is going to increase production in America is one that is built on a plan that is going to take decades to follow through with and decades to see results in. America doesn't produce a whole hell of a lot in terms of like just like physical, you know, we're not producing a lot of our own furniture, we're not producing a lot of our own clothes, but that's because we're doing a lot of other shit. In order for this tariff plan to mean something, we would have to start producing more in America, which would mean we would have to start building factories and we would have to start hiring people and training those people to do the work within those factories. We would also have to be designing new things, building whole businesses from like the ground up. None of that is going to happen in less than 10 years, let's be real. And especially not when we're actively working to deport a huge portion of the working class. Because the truth of the matter is, Americans don't want to work in factories. We're very privileged people. Specifically, like, you know, white Americans. So any of the labor that you would have gotten in these factories that are producing cars or clothes or furniture or what have you are more than likely going to be people who are willing to work for less, which is typically going to be immigrants, poor people, what have you. And ultimately is not something that would even get done and we would start to see results with in the Trump presidency. Any of the results that he's hoping to see from this are not something he's even going to see borderline in his lifetime just based off of the way he looks, acts, age, what have you. And so when someone says to you, oh, well, it might hurt now, but it'll feel better later, a person who can say that to you is a person who will be fine regardless of the economic status of the world or regardless of their job status. Anyone who is like, well, it might hurt, but we'll be okay, is someone who is saying that because they can survive. And it is also not anyone who has a good grip on reality, because none of this is considering the environmental cost of things. You know, we have all these tariffs on like steel and aluminum and what have you. If we're going to have to start getting steel and aluminum from our own country, we're going to start depleting our natural resources very quickly. We're going to have to be, that's why he's, done everything he can to take down, wildlife preserves and national parks. I'm sorry, I said natural. Because he wants to use those to log and to drill and to mine. And that's going to be a whole other set of jobs that you're going to have to train people to do because Americans are not trained on those sort of things. Americans are not very heavy laborers. And I'm saying all this, and I want to make it very clear, I'm saying this generally. I feel like people are going to be like, oh, are you saying that like we don't work? And that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that Americans are a pretty privileged people and we have not really had to be like working in the factories the way other people have. And so you're going to have to totally change like borderline a huge part of our culture. You're going to have to get all these people who suddenly want to work those jobs. And when we're actively deporting the people who are more likely to get those jobs, and when we're actively disenfranchising, the poor people who are more willing to do those jobs, it's going to be much harder to get them to do it because they're going to die because they can't feed themselves or their families and they're going to be homeless. So just know that that argument's going to go around and know that you can combat it with one, knowing that that person fundamentally is going to be okay. You can start with that. If someone says that to you, you can say, okay, so what I'm hearing is any sort of economic hardship our country may face, you are going to be fine generally through. And you can also ask them, why are you okay with American suffering now? Because it's also important to note America is one of the wealthiest countries in the world. We could end homelessness. We could end hunger. We could be doing a lot of things, but how would shareholders get their vacation homes? So then also ask them why they're okay with some people suffering. Because we actually don't need to have anyone suffering at all. The only reason that people are suffering is so that people like Elon Musk or other wealthy people can remain wealthy. And then what you can also do is you can rob that person. And ultimately, something that I want to end with is that a lot of you are going to have to get way, 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 way way cooler with your neighbor. Even if your neighbor is a Trump supporter, and I know people hate to say it, and everybody likes to jump on my, they do, but we are all going to be suffering financially, and it is much better to build community with the people in your neighborhood. Set up meal trains, set up, and I saw someone recommend this a while ago. I think it was Corn Pop, if I'm familiar, but I'm not quite sure. If you're buying in bulk, knock on a neighbor's door and be like, hey, I bought all these things in bulk. Like, if you need some, like, I know groceries are expensive, like, come over and, come and grab some. And then you can kind of start exchanging groceries with neighbors. You can also do this with, like, making really big meals. Are you, like, grilling, grill a little bit extra and knock on a neighbor's door and say, hey, I was grilling and I had a little bit of extra food. Do you want some? You can start, exchanging meals with your neighbors. You're going to have to start getting to know your neighbors because you're going to have to start borrowing things from them. This is also a good time to, like, get to know any of your neighbors who might own chickens or might do gardening of any kind. Me personally, I'm really hoping to grow some tomatoes out on that deck this summer. Will I be able to do it? I don't know. I've never grown anything before, but I'm gonna try. And when I get tomatoes, I'd love to drop tomatoes off at my neighbor's door. And how nice it would be if you didn't have to spend an extra $1 on a tomato. Anyways, things to know. Things to know.
Thank you for watching today's video.